I wanted to dive straight into this video and like pretend that I'd been posting on YouTube this whole time so it didn't feel weird to me, but it is. It's weird. I have to acknowledge that I'm this way, not this way. I normally post on TikTok. It's odd, and I know I should be doing it on my back camera because that's better quality. I can't bring myself to do that yet. I'll learn, but I have to see where I am in the frame. I don't know how else to do it. I tried a mirror behind, it didn't work. But yeah, I'm Iola, this is my first video, and these are my favourite books of 2024. My first choice is the Murderbot Diaries. I'm choosing this whole series to say as one book because if I counted them as separate books, this whole list would just be me going through each book in the Murderbot series. This is actually a reread for me. I finished the books in 2023 and then I read the last book and immediately went back to the first one on maybe January 2024 because I love them so much, and when I stopped reading them, I missed them, and I've never really had that, apart from the Hunger Games, but it's its whole separate entity. Murderbot Diaries is about a security unit that's owned by this huge corporation set in the far, far future, spaceships, terraforming, all that kind of stuff. It's half organic parts, half robotic parts. It hacks its governor module that like controls and stops it stepping out of company code. And it is, in theory, free to do what it wants. It doesn't know what it wants, so it just continues working and watches media all day and reluctantly has to save the humans that are on its team. And I love it so much. These books are just so funny, and it has my favourite fictional friendship between Murderbot and Art. Their dynamic is so good. I love them. Next is the Oleander Sword. This is the sequel to the Jasmine Throne. These books are inspired by ancient India. It's got plant magic. We've got an empress whose brother is on the throne and wants to burn her, and she does not want to burn and fulfill the prophecy. And we also have someone whose gods are no longer here and have kind of been erased and wiped out, and she's trying to find who she is without those gods. And they like each other very much. I genuinely think this is better than the first book, but I haven't read the first book in a really long time. But for me, I read this on the back of House of the Dragon, and this filled all of the things I wanted from House of the Dragon. It has like the politics and the scheming and two people on either side of like a war that still like each other but are kind of like not allies, kind of allies. Yeah, betrayals. I love these books. It's so good. And I've actually already finished the last one, but I technically finished it in 2025, so it's not on the list. Next, we've got Fevered Star by Rebecca Roanhorse. This is the sequel to Black Sun, and unlike the Oleander Sword, I don't know if this book was as good as Black Sun, but it's here because I love Black Sun so much, and because of that, I love this book, but it definitely feels like a continuation of Black Sun. It's just more stuff is happening, and it's a lot of setup for what I think is going to be a really good third book. These books start with the lead up to a solar eclipse. We have someone who is going to be the vessel of a god. We have religious coups that are happening, and I just think they're so good. I don't know how else to talk about this book. I love it. It's also got sailing in it, and I love sailing. What you'll see in the coming videos is I just really love pirates. Next is a standalone. It's The Dark and Drowning Tide. This is actually the Illumicrate special edition, so if you don't recognize it, that's why. Can we just take a moment for this? I read the NetGalley arc for this, so I read it as an ebook, and I deeply regretted it because this is like got a murder mystery element, and I love nothing more than annotating and scribbling guesses all over the pages. So I think my reading experience would have been so much more if I actually had the physical book, but I didn't, so it's fine. This book's full of folklore and magical creatures. I adore folklore and fairies, so this was just an instant hit for me. It follows an expedition of a group of people who are trying to find the source of magic for a king, and one of the people on the expedition dies, and it turns into this sort of closed door murder mystery kind of, and it has like rivals to lovers in it. The point of view is really interesting. It's from the folklore, so they have like a lot of background knowledge on the history of the areas and superstitions and things that have been lost to maybe the average person. So I love all that kind of stuff. The romance side was a little predictable and a little tropey, but I think that's what makes it so much fun. I had so much fun reading this. Like, I felt like giddy, you know? The only thing about this book is I'm not quite sure why the political situation at the end is like a happy ending. Like, I don't really get it. I kind of feel like the antagonists had a point. Next is Chingang All-Stars. This actually has made it onto my list of favourite books of all time. It's a dystopian book. It's set in the very near future. It follows gladiator-style fights to the death where people in the prison system enter it, and if they survive for 3 years in these televised tournaments, they can go free. It's not the best rehabilitation system I've ever heard, but flawed. It's horrifying. It's got these harrowing footnotes that sometimes are about the story and sometimes are listing real things that have happened in the prison system in our world, and I hated it. Our main point of views are following the people who are in the tournament, but we also get point of views of people who are protesting the event, are working for the event, are driving the bus of the prisoners to this huge spectacle. It's so good. One of my favorite ones is a really small one, and it's a woman who attends the event with her boyfriend and then starts watching the live streams. It gets really into it and slowly becomes more and more corrupt by the violence that she's witnessing. And it was amazing. It could have been its own little short story on its own. I also love the Hunger Games and Big Brother. I am a Big Brother live stream watcher. Like, I'm in it. I'm watching the 3 to 5 hours a night of bird songs. Like, so this is like the perfect book for me. Horrifyingly, I might have been one of the people who would be sucked into this and watch the live streams. Would I? No, let's say not. It has times where it's really lyrical and gorgeous and thought-provoking, but it's also so tense, and like, I legitimately felt my heart rate doing this when I was reading it. I had to stop reading this book because I thought I was going to finish it on the train. I knew I wouldn't be able to be in public when I finished this book, so I had to wait to finish it in the comfort of my own home. Next is The Fragile Threads of Power. This is a sequel series to A Darker Shade of Magic. So the Darker Shade of Magic books ended, we waited 7 real years, and now this is the story that's set 7 years on from that. If you don't know, A Darker Shade of Magic is like a gaslamp fantasy, kind of like a portal fantasy as well, where there's different Londons sitting on top of each other, and only specific people with specific type of magic can jump between these parallel Londons. Each London also has a different level of magic. I loved those books when they first came out, and I reread them quite recently, so I was really prepared to love this, and I was trying to set my expectations, but I really feel like it met them. It just feels like a good continuation. I get so nervous and worried when I have people that I feel like are good, like the characters are good, they're happy, and you know if you get more books, something is going to have to happen to make them not happy, but this was perfect. It was ideal. I really like the new characters that were added. I was really worried because I feared that I'd be bored reading their sections and would just kind of be like, where is Kel and Lila? But it wasn't that. I really like them. I'm excited to read the next book and see what happens with them. But I just really loved returning to Kel, Lila, Rye, Alucard. And my favourite thing about the Darker Shade of Magic books is how Kel and Lila are always saving each other, and we've got more of that in this, so that's kind of all I needed. And pirates! More pirates! Next is Tress the Emerald Sea. This is actually my first Brandon Sanderson book, which might be controversial. I've heard you're not supposed to read this book first. It's like a fairy tale of his other books, I believe. I'm not sure though, because I've never read Mistborn and I don't know, but it's just like what I've heard. It does have that fairy tale feeling to it, which I think makes it a really good audiobook to listen to as well. It just feels really comforting and lovely. The world is like whimsical, the characters are all really whimsical and just strange and unique, and yeah, I love the water is like spores, and there's pirates again. We follow Tress, who lives in this small rock of an island, and to get the thing that she wants she has to leave and go on this big adventure of her own, and she's just so clever and smart, and I don't know, sometimes I don't love characters who feel really clever, but with her it just feels right. Next is 9 Perfect Strangers. My old creative writing lecturer actually told me to read this because of the way it does multiple POVs, and I just never got around to it, and then I saw my library had it, so I gave it a try as an audiobook, and I loved it. It's set in this really fancy wellness retreat in Australia, and the owner is a lot and has had this near-death experience and wants everyone to come out of the wellness retreat transformed, and we follow the point of view of 9 of these guests. Some of the people there are just looking to relax, some people are dealing with grief, some people just want to like change up their life, and some people just really like going to health retreats. So it's got a really nice mix. The main point of view in my mind was a romance writer, and her point of view is just so good. Like, not Bridget Jonesy, but you know, she just feels like a classic like women's fiction protagonist, even though I hate that phrase. It's just a solidly good book. Those are the books I gave 5 stars to. I read a lot of books I really loved this year. I don't know why I gave so few of them 5 stars. I don't really know what happened with my rating system this year, but at least it gave me a really good clean cutoff for this video. I also think it gives a good idea of the kinds of books I like to read, although we are kind of missing some more weird fiction and unhinged women, but maybe next year, I don't know. Okay, Swan.